and thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Look, it's all of us right at the top of the show. What we really need is music. And there it is. Welcome, everyone. It is a Saturday night. It is Saturday, November 17th, 2018. A week from tonight, if you're a meat eater, you're going to be eating leftover turkey sandwiches. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you'll have other options, I'm sure. I'm open to everyone's dietary choices. No judgment here. I actually want to switch to veganism. Just having a real hard time. Maybe that's something we can talk about another time. I'm going to talk for a minute or two. I have a great guest tonight, though. His name is Alan Steinfield. He is a lecturer and teacher. He has a website called NewRealities.com. He also has a YouTube channel by the same name. And we'll be talking to him, and he has some pretty incredible things to talk about. But first of all, I just want to say hello, and I want to welcome you and thank you. If you have not already subscribed or smashed that like button, please do so. I greatly appreciate it. I know that there are a lot of things you could be doing with your time, but you've chosen to join us, and I deeply appreciate it. I appreciate it every time, every night. And I don't know. Since we were a couple of minutes late getting our start, I'm just going to skip my usual banter and we'll get right into it. Alan Steinfield is an expert, or, well, maybe I don't want to put words in his mouth and call him an expert, but he is well-versed in the topics of sexual Taoist healing, heartfulness meditation. He has interviewed Jay-Z Knight / Ramtha in the past, and he's done a lot of other things. And I'm going to let him speak for himself. And Alan Steinfield, welcome so much to the show.
Well, thank you. You know, my latest interest is in UFOs and UFO disclosure and how we're going to change the consciousness of the planet to welcome who's ever out there waiting for us to grow up. Does that fit in with some of your show topics?
It absolutely does. You know, what I did was I did some research, overall, and I knew that you were into a few different disciplines, and I was just going to kind of let it flow tonight. And so thank you so much. How do all of these ancient teachings and your studies in consciousness, which you have traveled around the world to investigate these areas, these disciplines that deal with consciousness and spirituality, how does that set of thinking and belief systems interface with ufology and the disclosure movement?
That is a great question. And that is sort of a bridge I'm trying to make, because a lot of people think they're spiritual, they're open-minded, yet they totally discount the fact that the universe is full of life and that we are not an accident of creation, I mean humanity, but life is abundant throughout the universe. So for me, it fits together in the sense that consciousness itself is a non-local phenomena. It's pervasive throughout time and space, and that we're not a freak of nature. Humanity is part of a vast brotherhood. I don't want to make it one sex or another. A vast a family, let's say, of conscious beings that are just trying to wake up. So it's about waking up to a bigger reality, to a new reality. The fact that, that these ancient civilizations knew this. Obviously, I think that we were actually genetically modified. The evolving primates that were here on Earth were injected or upgraded with some foreign DNA to make us different than all the other animals out there. And so we're partly from the stars. So that's sort of our destiny. That's my belief. Yeah.
No, absolutely. We are made of star stuff. There is no doubt of that. And do you kind of answer my question. That was a great answer because I was going to get into the genetic manipulation part of this. Do you think that do you think there's a wide spectrum of alien interaction here, and that some of this could be interdimensional, and that there could also be different races perhaps interacting with us? Some that may have negative intentions, and then others that may have positive intentions and are here to help us and guide us?
Absolutely. It's a huge, vast spectrum, like stations on a radio dial. There's so many different frequencies and vibrations, but it also has to do with that first question that you asked. What does this have to do with consciousness? It's has everything to do with consciousness. You see, we're programmed to think this is all there is, and that's been conditioned into us by our media, our religion, our politics. They just say this is it, and maybe there are other worlds and maybe there aren't, but we have the facility within our brains, within our mental mechanism, to tap into these other realities just by allowing thought to come to us, or our consciousness. This is the whole idea of channeling, is when you switch your focus to allow other voices to come into you without being crazy. Of course, there are people who are crazy who do hear that, but someone who's sane, who can let these other frequencies come into their brain to be received, can communicate these higher messages. I think the brain is like a radio. We're not actually in there, but we're receiving the frequency of our soul signature through this embodiment. And in a sense, we're channeling ourselves. And we can also allow other non local consciousnesses to come in. So by modulating the frequency of thought, we can tap into these other realities and these other beings that do exist all around us on higher dimensions, on parallel universes, parallel sort of worlds. And there are negative beings, definitely, and they're mostly, it's like, most of the people you meet on the street are pretty decent people. Occasionally you run across someone who probably isn't so great, but it's like that with extraterrestrials. Most of them are just trying to live, love, be happy, learn, evolve. And occasionally there's some that, want something. They call it in the law of service to self or service to others. Well, most of people here on earth are in service to others, like most of the civilizations out there. They're in service for a collective awakening. And occasionally there are self-serving people. So it's a parallel between what's happening here and what's happening in the cosmos. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Um, from this model that you're
Mhm.
presenting to us, is it correct for me to understand? Do you think that consciousness itself is a thread that runs throughout the universe or the multiverse, as we might define it, and that this thread of consciousness that we can tap into is also the thread of consciousness that connects to other dimensions or to these other alien beings? And much like maybe this is an old school reference, but much like you used to be able to tap into a phone line, do you think that 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 thread of consciousness runs through all of life, all of manifestation, and so that's accessible by these beings as well as ourselves?
Well, you exactly define my understanding of what consciousness is, because it comes down to two questions. Did consciousness evolve through biological structures? That means, did we get more and more sophisticated neurologically and suddenly we became aware of consciousness? Or did consciousness descend into physical form to create awareness? So uh, if we think that consciousness evolved, which some people think, and that's part of the I guess the counter theory, then it's just sort of like then it can't be explained. Yeah, maybe some neurologists can say yes, sophisticated structures in the brain produce what's called self-awareness, but where is that? I think the latter choice is that, consciousness is the pervasive essence of the universe, and it descends into these biological forms. Of course, I don't want to sound too much like creationists who say, well, because a lot of people then substitute the word God for consciousness, but I think we can evolve beyond the God concept, because that sort of has some history there. So I think using the word consciousness and knowing that we are these conscious beings, I think it's exactly what you said. It's like a party line through the multiverse and the multi-existence, and it is the means of exchange with all these sentient beings that exist here, like we see around us, and the ones that exist in other levels and other dimensions. So it's about opening the possibility of the receivership, which is the brain, to these higher frequencies, and then trusting that you're not crazy, that other frequencies are coming in, and we could be the translators of these higher dimensional thoughts. So we have to realize there's more to the human being than we've been told. And for people who have acknowledged it, they have been put away in institutions and say that wasn't possible. So we need to evolve our civilization to the capabilities of who we are as human beings, and trust what we're getting as intuition and maybe psychic downloads. And my friend Grant Cameron just wrote a whole book about musicians getting these songs from ET consciousnesses. So there's evidence for this. And it depends what you're open to believing. So I think that it's exactly what you said. There is a universal language of consciousness throughout creation.
Yeah, I have a pet theory that consciousness will one day prove to be the ultimate tool of science. That at some point, that consciousness and direct experience will merge with scientific evidence, or the scientific method, perhaps might be a better way to state it, and that these two will merge one day and give us a more complete understanding. I want to take part of what you said and turn that around a little bit, and in the way that we're just now learning about our own full potential and how we may not at this stage be tapping into it, or maybe as a species overall we're not tapping into it, but there are individuals who are. Are these aliens? Can these alien beings also? I'll back up just a second. We tend to think of a nuts and bolts kind of thing with alien contact, and we tend to think of abductions, and we tend to think of scientific experimentation on us, and that's all rooted in some kind of mythos of science. I think that is kind of a reflection of us. I think we're kind of projecting. And is it not so much perhaps that aliens want to biologically experiment on us or affect us? Can they do the same thing spiritually? Can they affect our energy centers, affect our chakras? Can they reach in and affect us in a spiritual or consciousness way beyond the physical?
Well, absolutely. I mean, all religions are based on some sort of sky god that interacted with human beings. And that's the whole ancient alien theory that Eric von Däniken put out, that the religions were actually started by alien contact. And some of them were more evolved and more spiritual, and that, they seeded the human population to start to wake up to their own divinity. But I just want to get back to abductions. I do think abductions do happen. I don't think it's, let's say, a negative thing. I think the beings that are doing this, what's called the little grays, the little gray aliens, are doing it because they need our genetics, because they reach the end of their evolutionary process. This is just my theory, and maybe a few others, that they develop pure intellect, pure mind, and they forgot that doesn't get them home. They bred their emotions out of themselves, and they bred their passion, and they forgot what existence in life was all about, because they just developed intellect, which is sort of a tendency that we're heading to. So what they've done through some time, sort of time flow, and this is just a theory, is that they abducted people and taken the genetics, because the genetics hold emotion, and they've created a hybrid population that is part human, part ET, to populate other planets. I don't believe what some people say, that they're going to take over this planet. That's a theory of David Jacobs. No, I think there's a lot of available planets out there, but this genetic hybrid population will have that integration of the passion and emotion with the great intellect that some of these races have developed. So that's my theory.
Okay, that's awesome. I love hearing you speak, by the way. I just want to say that, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank
I,
you.
I like the way this flows with you. This is good stuff. I like it, and I hope the audience is appreciating you as well.
Well, it sounds a little crazy if you're just picking it up, if you don't have any orientation, if you're not familiar with the literature. But the government knows about this. If you, I go to all the big conferences. Sometimes I speak at conferences. Sometimes I host conferences. I was just at Alien Con. I'm one of the MCs at Contact in the Desert. This is sort of a current in the subculture of the UFO population, who understand that this is a possibility. And to the mainstream, it's like, this is pure nonsense, because it doesn't fit in with the paradigm that they're telling us to believe. But if you dig deeper into the government records, if you look at Richard Dolan's books on UFOs and the national security state, you will see that right underneath the surface, the government has been dealing with this phenomena for a long time. In December 17th of last year, 2017, it made the front page of the New York Times that the Pentagon admitted there was a secret space program to study unidentified craft in the sky. So it's what they call disclosure. It's what they call a slow leaking disclosure. And there's many possibilities why that's happening. Maybe some people say we're not ready for it. I think we are ready for it. And we have to overthrow the limitation of thought. I mean, there's some great heroes in this field. Stephen Bassett, who's a lobbyist in Washington for UFO disclosure. So once we're become aware that there are other beings, that we're not alone in the universe, that opens up a whole realm of possibilities that's been closed off to us. And that includes technological, spiritual, social, political. I mean, but that's also the reason it's been suppressed. Obviously, I mean, economically, these craft that are visiting us are not filling up their gas tank to get here. They have a technology that I think the world is ready for. They're tapped into the 0 point field, which is, means that within this cubic centimeter of space right in front of you is enough power and energy to fuel the planet right there, if we know how to tap into the 0 point, because empty space is full of potential energy. So that's part of it.
Absolutely. And it's like I tell people, I'm a fan of Richard Dolan myself, and I have come in contact with a lot of his research. And I just have to agree with Richard in the sense that, everyone says disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. They want it. And I tell people disclosure means the end of life as you know it, because true disclosure would mean the collapse of the petrodollar, and economies around the world would follow suit. And who knows what kind of chaos we would see from the fallout of wars and economies, wars breaking out and economies crashing around the planet. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it, but in some ways, the way our economic system is set up is there's a lot of inequity built into our system. And I think that's part of the frustration with people worldwide is that they see this uneven distribution of wealth, access, and technology. And, people are waking up to the idea of equity, that we should all have access to the same resources. And
Absolutely. I mean, we're here to be creative beings, not to be enslaved to a system that forces people to work and not have the freedom to explore their creative talents. Imagine if there was free energy. And yes, it would take the collapse of the petrodollar, but just think of what would be built in as a sort of utopian society when that did happen, and that would be real freedom. We're not really living in freedom because we're enslaved to the petrodollar, right? So if we had free energy, which is possible, which is, a scientific possibility, because obviously there's energy that's turning this planet, that's moving the tides, that is wind and solar. I mean, there's so much energy out there. We need to devote our resources into developing energy systems. But of course, the petrodollar, the oil companies don't have an investment in that, and it is a greed-based society. And I think this will change. This is changing, and maybe the ETs are waiting for us to take control of our own future. They're not going to do it for us. No one's going to save us from ourselves, and that's the revolution that we're in now.
that's right. We have to collectively put on our big people pants. And I was going to ask you, do you think humanity is capable of a peaceful transition through disclosure? Do you think that chaos and turmoil is inevitable, or do you think there's a way for us to navigate through that with a different outcome?
I think people have been underestimated. I think the people that will go into turmoil are those corporate structures that will collapse with this availability, but it's not the people. The people themselves, which the people that just want to live sort of regular life with their family and do good things. I mean, I'm an optimist that there's more of us out there than the greedy faction that wants to just hold on to their money. So I think it it's been underestimated that yes, it is a peaceful transition because this is who we were incarnated to be, and it's just the distortion of the corporate structures that makes us think it wouldn't be peaceful, and the fear-based news and all that propaganda that's out there that's depriving us from who we really are, which is peaceful beings. Of course, we all have our, you know, animal side, but I think as we mature and evolve and as our needs are met, if we have free energy, the struggle to meet our needs won't develop into war. I mean, it'll be a much more of a free and open society because it should be, because that's what it was meant to be. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Um, do you think that I had I wanted to seize on a point that you made.
yes, it's
And what
okay.
was that
Whatever.
point? I know I lost it, man. It just I had it right there on the tip of my tongue. The point that you made, oh yeah, I do know what it was.
Okay.
When you talk about, I was wondering if you'd talk to the audience a little bit about the fear and turmoil that we get exposed to in the news. And this is switching gears slightly, but it's on this
Yeah.
track. What can people do right now to push back against all the social pressure, the negativity that we see? Because I do believe that it is how you view the world. I think you can see the world as kind of a dead end nightmare place where lots of bad things happen. I also think you can see beauty and love and joy. And it really is rooted in your perspective. how can people fight against just all the negativity wherever it comes from?
Well, I think we have to change how we use our words. When you say fight against, that's putting right.
Correct. You
So
got me. Yeah.
right, no, it's just it's a level of thinking that we've been programmed, and fear sells. Survival is our most basic instinct, and when that is threatened or broadcast to be threatened, people react, and they are caught up in this. So we have to know that survival is ensured, that we're not here to just survive. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but we're here to thrive. And you have to we have to learn how to tap into the inner resource of who we are, and not live by the collective fear that's put out there. I mean, it takes inner development. People have to start to meditate and start to drop into themselves and trust the being that they are. But we're never given a space to do that within the culture. You have to take that space and drop into yourself and find that self. And maybe it takes leaving your corporate job or leaving any situation that has put you in fear, and go to a peaceful place and find that peace, the peace that passes all understanding. And when you find that, then you sense the immortal essence, you sense a joy, and nothing can shake that. And so the fear in the world doesn't have to affect us. And not only that, but once we're finding that place, we're putting out a higher frequency that will help others be lifted. So when you find that place in yourself, our collective mission is to lift other people. So it's always been this sort of struggle between the haves and the have-nots, in that sense, that people have found the peace and the people struggling to have that peace. And I think there's been a shift in frequency, and I think we're in a new place. I think 2012 was a shift in frequency, and people are waking up to this greater being that they are. So I think it's going to be easier, even though the news doesn't look that way. I think it is more people finding themselves having a spiritual awakening. I mean, a friend of mine runs a spiritual emergence group where suddenly people are realizing that there's more to them, that they can wake up, and that there's a vaster consciousness out there. So it's happening.
Absolutely.
And it's exciting. Yeah.
It is. No, it is exciting. It's very exciting. I want to know what your take, shifting gears again slightly, but staying on the theme of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a crossover? Is there a connection between, and you're talking about people who are doing a lot of inner searching or spiritual exploration. And sometimes people turn to mechanical means for these types of things, where they might use a psychedelic like ayahuasca or LSD or mushrooms, and various substances. The reports come back that people have different types of experiences. Is there any crossover? And what I'm thinking of are more like these DMT experiences, where or ayahuasca, where people are experiencing like these mechanical elves and mechanical aliens and these other worlds. And that's very much rooted in that shamanic journey that is looking for that connection in that way. Is there a crossover between these alien beings and these other worlds that are perceived through psychedelics, or do you think that these are kind of sectioned off?
Well, I've done all that. I've done DMT, I've done ayahuasca, I've done a little bit of LSD, and I've gotten much higher through meditation or through just shamanic work without that substance. I mean, I had a great experience on ayahuasca, but in a way, there's a sectioning off of consciousness. And I feel some people reach those ET realms with some of those substances. I didn't. I mean, I had my own ET experiences more in dream states that were less they were in altered states, but they were through, it seemed like dreams, but I know that they weren't dreams, but it's like I'm practicing my own lucidity in those realms. So I think you can't, if you're doing those drugs, substances, DMT, uh, it's more like a flash of insight into those worlds. If you get there on your own, you really get to stay there. And I think, there is natural DMT that is emitted by the brain, by the pineal gland. Actually, in dark room experiences, sleeping in dark rooms, in totally dark rooms, you will have more of a DMT, which creates more of that lucidity in the dream state. So, I think I think those substances actually get in the way sometimes if you do it too much, because then you become dependent on the medicine, and don't rely on your own neurology on a higher frequency, because our frequencies are shifting to get closer to those realms. And this is why channeling has become so popular and almost faddish, because people are raising their frequencies and reaching those realms without drugs. So I think drugs, whatever you want to call them, is sort of the thing of the past. They were maybe needed when the planet was not at a certain level of consciousness, but now we are. They those the LSD revolution in the 60s helped us awaken to those higher realms, but we're already there. You don't need to take the medicine if you're already there. So that's my theory. Of course, a lot of people don't like that idea. They're attached to their ayahuasca and their microdosing and their DMT, and but it's all inside of us. It's here. You just have to meditate or go into those places inside your mind, find yourself in a lucid dream, and you'll be as higher than anything you ever took into your body. And that's my
Exactly.
experience.
No, no, I wonder that because I went down that path in the past myself, and I read "Be Here Now" by Ram Dass, and
Mhm.
but I was much younger. I was just in my early 20s and really just kind of waking up a little bit. And over time, my view uh, turned a little bit towards thinking. I tend to call them mechanical means because you're kind of like
Yeah,
mechanically or chemically
right.
affecting your brain. That it's kind of a cheat. That yes, you can take heroic doses and you can have these experiences, but I often wonder if we simply uh, learn more from the experience if we're doing it the natural way, like what you're talking about through meditation and through some kind of inner self discipline.
I mean, it's harder. Terrence McKenna used to, who I
Right.
loved. I love say you can meditate in a cave for 20 years, or you can just do the ayahuasca and boom, you're there. But does that really get us anywhere? I think Terrence overdid it personally. But although he is incredibly brilliant and insightful and important is as a figure in the subculture of awakening people, but yeah, it's harder. But I think we are at a place where we can get there, and we are. And I've seen people have a kundalini awakenings where they are so out there and they're seeing all sorts of energies and higher levels of experiences, and it's exciting because we all have that energy in us. I mean, people that basically need those things to escape, those mechanical means to escape their dull life, because that's the
Yes.
conditioning. And you don't have to look at life as dull. If you just switch your attitude, you'll see each moment is full of miracles. And that's what I see. Even in the most dull experience, you have the chance to be present and take in the vibrancy of the world and be infused with magic, if you want to call it that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
As we, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you. We're starting to wind down. We've gone a few
Oh, is
minutes
this the
over our
program?
allotted. No, no, no,
Oh,
not
oh,
quite. I
okay.
wanted to thank you for
Okay.
staying up so late because you're on East Coast time and it really is midnight there, and
It's
I'm here in the high
12:30.
desert.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to thank you, and I wanted to let you
Okay.
know that I appreciate that. And I want to give a
Okay.
shout out really quickly to some people in the chat room. Gaming Minister, they're here. Mark Torana. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to give you a quick shout out. Pursuing X, of course, the professor's on the other end. Can you? I'd kind of like to close out. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about heartfulness meditation. Is that a very specific practice or discipline, or what does
Well,
that mean?
well, heartfulness meditation, I think you saw that on my YouTube
I
channel.
did, yes.
That was something, that was an interview I did with the Heartfulness Foundation.
Okay.
It's not something I practice regularly, although I liked it. I mean, heartfulness meditation is a specific meditation where there is a trainer who almost gives you a transmission of in the meditation. So you're getting a sort of frequency from the masters of that lineage, and in a way you drop into a deeper space in the meditation process. I mean, I've done lots of types of meditation. I've done
Hmm.
Vipassana, but the heartfulness does drop you into a really nice place. But I would just recommend for any meditation, it's not about shutting off your mind. It's about being the watcher, being the observer of your mind, as if, because your mind will keep going. It's like a radio playing, but you're not your mind. We are the watchers of the mind. So if we can make that distinction of being the observer of consciousness as consciousness, then we don't have to react to the dramas of the world so fast. You're sitting back and you're sort of watching it all, not in not in a disassociated way, but in a way where you're not sucked into what's activating everyone, what's inciting everybody to sort of panic and react. You're here, and meditation helps by just watching your thoughts, and that's actually a higher dimensional experience. If you're observing the reality, you're not caught up in it. If you can observe the observer, then you're really on another plane of existence. Then you really reached another level. So heartfulness is one way, Vipassana is another way, even TM. I just like sitting and watching the mind. Actually, it's what the Aborigines. I studied with the Aborigines when I lived in Australia, and they said this is dream time. This is their religion. Actually, their religion is dream time, where you're watching the dream unfold within the arena of consciousness. And what's so interesting about that is when you're in the dreams, then you start to be the receiver, and then you start to notice things you don't normally think. Things, people or beings or places come into your consciousness that are not familiar, and then you're in the dream time. And that for me is the most exciting meditation of all, because it's like you've shifted reality into these other worlds. And yeah, maybe some people say that psychologically motivated and all whatever people say about dreams, but something else is going on where you're receiving a new frequency of thought within the dream time scape. And then you become lucid, and then you have the ability to travel through your dreams to visit other people, other places. I mean, the Egyptians were really into this. And so were the Toltecs. I mean, I've studied the work of Carlos Castaneda and his teacher Don Juan, and they've had.
Yes, I'm a big fan. I didn't
Me
mean to
too.
interrupt, but yes, you really
Okay, I
you
don't
hit
want
on something with me there.
Yes, yes, I love those books, and some people say, "Oh, it was all made up," but I don't think it was made up, because those practices work. They really work. And if you do the dreaming practices in those books, I've just met another teacher named Sergio Magana who has a lot of great dreaming practices from the ancient Mexico civilizations, the pre-Spanish civilizations. So actually, I think he even said the word Mexico means land of the dreamers. So so I recommend Sergio Magana. He's incredible as a teacher of these ancient practices. So you don't need drugs when you have the ability or these to dream or those mechanical means, because we haven't even explored the tools that we come equipped with when we're born here, because no one told us that there were tools. So we can all wake up, and paradoxically, to the dream, to dreaming.
That's
Wake up to
absolutely.
your dream time.
No,
But
absolutely. No, keep going.
I appreciate your open mindedness and your willing to have a conversation, because these are things that fascinate me, that I've explored, that I've spent the last 20 years. And that's why I call my program New Realities, because it is about looking at the world from a different point of view of reality.
Absolutely. And this is my last question. What you have said is so eloquent. I'm so glad that we had this conversation.
Yes.
When we dream, is that just our consciousness kind of plugging into that universal thread of consciousness unfettered?
Well, I don't think it's that simple, because dreams exist on many levels. There's the psychological backlash from living day to day. So I think Freud was right on some level, where you're working out the problems of your life in dream time. But then on another level, Jung said you're connected to the collective consciousness in your dream. And then there's prophetic dreams. So it depends where you're tuning into. Yeah, I think ultimately we are connected to the cosmic consciousness through the dream time. And the gift of the human being and the practice is to become aware within those dream time moments of that connection. And then you have a whole other level of awakening that's really magical. And I think that's the practice I'm most excited about doing. And then this world is a dream. And then we're connected in this world to that cosmic consciousness as it manifests all around us. The work of Paul Levy is really great about that. Awaken in the Dream. I mean, there's so many great teachers out there and great explorers of consciousness. I mean, I do a lot of dialogues with Deepak Chopra, who's always talking about consciousness. So this is a consciousness revolution, if you want to look at it that way. But you have to shut off the news. You have to get rid of the distractions from the day-to-day dramas, and tune into the news that stays news. That's what I call consciousness. It doesn't get old.
That's beautiful. So where
So
can people no, go ahead.
I'm just curious, I mean, I know you asked a lot of questions, but I mean, I also give you, but what's your, I mean, how do you fit into all this? What do you do?
Well, it's interesting. I have said that I have not written a book. I am not a researcher. However, I have been a lifelong student of these subjects. What happened to me, to give you a thumbnail sketch, is I had a very up close and I don't know if personal, but a very close proximity Bigfoot encounter as a child.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I was with my best friend at the time, and we
Where
were
were
right.
you?
I grew up in the Midwest, and I grew up in Indiana,
Uh-huh.
and I know that the Midwest and Indiana is not thought of as Bigfoot territory, and I'll kind of get to that. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version here.
Okay.
We were at a campground because my friend's mother worked there, and I would go along to hang out to keep him company. So we wound up in a section of the woods, and suddenly to our right, I heard a noise, and I saw something that I thought was along the ground. We were on the side of a hill. It's kind of hard to paint the picture with just words, but I was standing on the side of a hill that kind of turned over because it was a place where water had ran down through. And what I thought was along the ground was actually the top of this creature's head. And as I looked, the what this black thing was on the ground turned into a head, turned into shoulders as it crested this hill, coming right towards us. And I had a full on, and I must have been within 20 feet of this being. And I could see its arms, I could hear its breathing with each step, and it running right towards us. I heard each breath, I heard each exhalation, and I was just filled with complete terror. I mean, I wish I could say that I handled it more graciously, but I was a 10-year-old kid. And
What did he do? He was running towards you for what reason?
well, he was running right towards us, and we screamed, and we turned around, and we ran up the hill, and it obviously turned down the hill. So as it was coming towards us, we screamed. It went down the hill. We ran up to the crest of the hill, and we ran and got adults. And we were in such a panic that we actually did get people to. The son of the owner of the campground came with a gun, and he fired off a couple shots in the air. And I don't think he believed us, but we were truly scared, and I think he saw that. And
Wow,
I
that
was
is great. Thank. What did you smell them? Do they have a they have
no.
an incredible? You didn't. You were too freaked out, right?
Yeah. No, this was, and my biggest regret of that is that I was a child and did not have the state of mind to be like more observant in the moment. All I really knew was fear, to be quite honest with you. But it did teach me a tremendous lesson. It taught me that reality is not what they're telling us in school, that there is more to life and more to this world, that there are fantastical things, and we cannot always explain what these things are.
Wow.
And even at 10 years old, that was a serious lesson for me because I don't think I ever saw the world the same way since then.
You
And
never
so
saw a UFO, though, have you?
I have not seen a UFO. I've not had any kind of contact that way,
Mm.
just the one Bigfoot encounter. And
Wow.
it's strange because for me, the Bigfoot topic due to my interaction is kind of shut and close or open and close. It's like, okay, that one's answered. Yes, that exists. And I've gone over in my head a million times, whether these are interdimensional beings, and that plays a factor in the fact that in that we see them or we see footprints and evidence, but then they're not always around when we're looking for them.
I
But then
think they
they
are
show up in these weird
interdimensional.
times. Go ahead.
I
What?
think they I know, I just saying I think they are interdimensional. I mean, my theory of Bigfoot is that they are actually the Neanderthals that people say disappeared, but they actually evolved to be interdimensional. I don't have any proof of that, and most people think that's ridiculous, but I think they were a parallel race that was existing with Cro-Magnon, which became us, but they were these Neanderthal beings, which had bigger brains and that were interbreeding, but somehow took this dimensional doorway and became, separate from us. So, generally, I think they avoid us because we're not very nice as human beings to creatures different than us. So, I think I haven't had a Bigfoot experience. I've seen UFOs. I've seen stuff in the sky. I've had abduction dreams, but that's exciting. I've never really talked to anyone who've had that. I did interview a guy named. Do you know that psychic Bigfoot guy?
Hmm.
I forgot his name. He wrote a book called Psychic Bigfoot, where that would be a great guy for you to interview.
Yeah, that would be.
He's yeah, what's his name? I used to have his. I'll find his name for you. Psychic. I'll just look that up. Um, Bigfoot, because he says he's in telepathic communication with these Bigfoot creatures. And actually, maybe you are if you tap into that
You know,
that that Bigfoot you met. I bet you could. Yeah.
yeah, no, I wonder about that, and I have often wondered, and it's funny that you touched upon the Carlos Castaneda, because as soon as I read the Castaneda books and I got onto his idea of allies, and that these allies, these elementals, can appear to humanity in different forms, monstrous to some people and angels to others, and everything in between. And I've tended to look at some of these spiritual beings, more like these elementals or allies, as like a tiger is not an evil being. A tiger is what it is, and if you go walking through the jungle, there is a chance that a wild tiger will eat you. But that doesn't mean that that tiger is evil. That's just an apex predator in its environment, doing what it does, and you are the one who walked into it. And I just wonder if these allies, these beings, are kind of like neutral, like they're not really good or evil as we tend to define that, but they just simply are. And somehow our perceptions of them and our interactions with them kind of define what kind of experience we have in the end.
I totally agree with that. I mean, it's some people in the I guess the Middle East they call those allies jinns, genies.
Correct.
And
Yes.
so they're not good or evil. I mean, they can be mischievous, I suppose. I mean, there were elves or gnomes that weren't very nice in the Scandinavian area. But I think these are real creatures that exist interdimensionally, and the indigenous beings were aware of that because they weren't so left brained. They were able to tap into those other realities much easier. They lived as a part of nature, and I think the Sasquatch, the Bigfoots, are just very much more evolved than us because they've been able to tap into their brains to be interdimensional beings and live in nature. I mean, they seem to live totally in harmony with nature, and I think they could smell human beings like miles away, and that's why.
Absolutely. Yes.
And there was probably some, I don't know, there seems to be something more to that experience that you had that's like, I don't know, I think something was supposed to be part of that, right? Like awaken you. Maybe that
Yeah.
was all about it.
And I have to be honest with you. As it, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going
Yeah.
to be honest with the audience. It's like I'm
Okay.
having an epiphany right now about this as we're speaking about this live on the air, because this seems like there have always been missing pieces to this puzzle, this experience for me. But as we talk about this, and I hear what you have to say about this, and look at this from that outside perspective, this was all about teaching me that this was about shocking me into the true reality of our universe.
Right.
Not what they're teaching us in school, not what they're teaching us at work, but the true nature, the high strangeness of our universe.
Well, I
And
have to say it
because
might be why you're doing this program. I mean, this radio show, this radio,
yeah,
I mean, had this series because of that experience, right?
absolutely. There is a direct connection. Yes. This show is a manifestation of that experience. Yes.
Wow. So I think there's more to that experience. Maybe you should be regressed, or
Yeah, I
maybe.
have been thinking about that. As a matter of fact, and I will put this out there right now, it's been in the back of my mind. It's crazy that you said that. I would even be willing to be regressed like on camera and share this with the audience. I would be willing to go through that. I
Oh,
would do
really?
that.
Maybe I'll
Yes.
find someone to do that and videotape you. That would be kind of fun. There
Yeah.
are people. I know a hypnotic a guy. Well, he's in New York, but he does that kind of regression work. And but what I also would recommend is that you see if you could tap into that particular Bigfoot, and see if like there's still obviously there's still a connection because you've never forgot it. So there's something with that Bigfoot that you could connect with just in
Mm.
meditation. And maybe read this book, Psychic Sasquatch, this guy Hawani Lapsaratus wrote, and definitely have him on the show. He's all about protecting the psychic Bigfoot connection. But I'm just saying for you though,
Yeah.
just tap in and see if you can, I would say, even channel the Bigfoot that you met. I mean, who knows? It sounds crazy, but why not?
No, that's an interesting thought. I'd never considered that, and I will try that. That is a fascinating concept, and I think you're right. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna. This has never happened. I have never talked to anyone on this show or had an experience where we were just kind of having a conversation and kind of dancing around these topics, but all of a sudden you and I think this makes for a good interview, but you found a way to turn this around on me and
No.
get me to have some, well, no, not in a negative way whatsoever, in a totally positive way, to get me to kind of look inside all of a sudden and have an epiphany about my own experience right here, live. That's pretty mind blowing.
Well,
So
I'm happy to do that. I mean, that's fun for me because as you wake up and you waking up other people, then, someone else may have an epiphany or I will, or this, I don't know. It just has a chain reaction that's very positive.
no, it is. It is. So, Alan,
I appreciate you, but I just also appreciate you being that vulnerable right here in front of your audience.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. No, it's authentic. There's nothing put on about this.
Yeah.
So where can people find your work, and are you going to be making any appearances in 2019? I know the convention season's kind of fading out right here at the end of the year, but what's going on with you here in the near future?
Well, coming up on July 4th, if you're not January 4th at the Open Center, January 4th, 2019, I'm hosting a panel of astrologers talking about the predictions for 2019. That's in the New York Open Center on January 4th. On January 19th, I'll be at the Alex Gray Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. Have you been there?
No, but I am a huge fan of his, and I have asked him for an interview. So once again, you and our interests are crossing over here.
Well, he's been a good friend. I mean, when I first saw his work, I said, "Who is this guy?" I was totally captivated. And so he's a friend. They've become friends, Alex and Allison. So I'm going to be teaching remote viewing at Alex Gray's Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, an afternoon workshop there. So remote viewing, as the CIA learned it from the Stanford Research Institute. And so that's always fun, tapping into those psychic awarenesses. That's okay, that's January. Then February, I'm going to be at the Conscious Living Expo in LA. I'm going to be talking about star beings. Hosting a talk with the J.J. Hurtak, the Keys of Enoch. And then in March, I'll be at the New Life Expo back in New York. In April, where will I be? Up in San Mateo at the Conscious, what is that called? The Conscious Living Expo. I'll be giving a lecture with the Keys of Enoch people. And then where will I be? I'll be at Contact in the Desert in June, emceeing a panel, which is probably one of the best extraterrestrial conferences in the country. You get about 4,000 people, really open, really available intellectually. I mean, I went to Alien Con, that's sort of a joke, but Contact in the Desert. No, Contact in the Desert, these are people considering the intellectual implications of alien contact. And I think we need to integrate a kind of sophisticated way of making sense of these realities in order for them to be accepted by the mainstream public. So Contact in the Desert's one of my favorite all-time gatherings. So actually, people can just find me on my I have NewRealitiesEvents.com. I'm upgrading my NewRealities.com website, so I built another temporary website called New Realities Events. But my main platform is YouTube, youtube.com/NewRealities, where I host different people to share their experiences. Like this, you sharing your Bigfoot experience would be a perfect New Realities episode, because that's what I'm interested in. People sharing their intimate personal experiences, because that makes it easier for other people to say, I had this weird experience. And if everyone starts to share their weird experiences, then they're no longer weird. Then it's like, oh yeah, I had one and this, and then it just opens up the field to more possibilities that then filter into the mainstream news, and then doesn't become a whole kind of subject we have to be embarrassed and hide about. Then I mean, that's my job, is to make the supernatural natural, because it is, and we need to know that. So New Realities is on YouTube, and that's sort of my main platform. People can email me at newrealities@earthlink.net. They can go to my Facebook page, but to follow me, yeah, go to my website and my YouTube channel. And
And
it's
we'll
been great.
yeah, we'll enclose some of those links as well.
Oh, thank
Alan
you.
Alan Steinfield, thank you so much. And I'm going to tell you, you lifted me up. I have happiness and joy going on as a result of this conversation with you. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I had a rough day today, and I was not in the best mood. And talking to you totally turned that around.
Oh,
So and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
yeah,
Thank you
I
so
feel
much.
that. Well, I'm happy to do that for you, and I'm happy to hear. I want to hear like what happens as you go deeper into the Bigfoot. I am. I'm really curious, like
Yeah,
what you discover. So maybe I can interview you, and you can tell the whole story on my program, and or we could do another program with you, whatever you want. But
I would
keep
I would be happy to appear on your show, and you're always welcome to come back on this one, please.
okay.
And
So is this
no,
on a regular radio program, or where will people
this
hear this?
is
Or do
people are going to hear this on YouTube, and
okay.
then I distribute this like on Facebook. We do other social media, Twitter, and stuff like that. So this is the main hub of activity right here on this YouTube channel.
Oh, are we on YouTube now live?
Yes, we are on YouTube.
Oh,
Yes,
we
this is
are
live
live.
stream. We are live. Yep, this
What's the
is
YouTube channel?
Mysterious Forces Live.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we were live on YouTube. Okay, because people no, I mean I knew we were
That's
live
great.
somewhere, but I didn't know it was
All right.
YouTube.
No, we're
Mysterious.
live on YouTube. We've got people in the chat room and the whole
Oh,
bit. Yeah.
what are they saying in the chat? How they can't see my chat
Let's
room?
see. Let's see.
I mean, I'm not able
Jay
to.
Lowe said Natasha's super hot. No, wait, no, he didn't say that. Uh, Lady Zaga, you're lucky your mysterious encounter as a child. Oh, someone said remote viewing is a definite no for me. I don't know. Sounds like there's a story there. Um,
Oh, I see. Oh, I
let's
see.
see. Zarathustra Papalaminus. And if I said that correctly, I should win a prize. Time is an illusion that is created by our nervous system. Sometimes little slips in space / time cause these animals and creatures to manifest into our reality. So
Oh, I see.
that's some of the commentary.
Oh,
Now,
I see. I see us now on Facebook, on YouTube. Is that you there, Natasha?
yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, no, this has been a fun conversation for me too, and thank you
And
for
yeah, please
being
stay in touch. And if you ever want to chit chat or you need anything I can help you with, please let me know. I'd love to do that.
where are you based out of? Which town?
I'm just north of Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh,
I'm
you're
in,
in Arizona. Oh, okay. I will be out that way in April for the Keys of Enoch conference. So
yeah,
maybe you
maybe
come down to the hotel and we can meet.
absolutely. We'll get coffee or a meal. That would be awesome.
That's in April, and we could even do. Oh, but definitely, I want to hear it. Yeah, I think this is a great story you have with your. But I mean, because I totally believe you, and I know that Bigfoot is out there. I'm not connected into the Bigfoot world, but there are people who are, and definitely you should interview this guy who does all the psychic Bigfoot stuff. And here, I'll put that in the chat room here. This guy, I see. There's a chat room on. Oh, okay, on YouTube. Okay, I'm just gonna put
Live
this
chat.
here. Yeah, let me just see. Psychic
Lady
Bigfoot.
Zaga
There.
loves Arizona.
Okay. All right, great. This is Psychic Bigfoot. like Sasquatch. I mean, there's many names. The abominable snowman was another name for Bigfoot. Yetis is what the Tibetans call them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a worldwide population.
Yeah, no, I view them as a people, whether they are interdimensional or not. I see them as a people.
I think they're interdimensional. I think actually, the earth is hollow, right? So I think they actually come in and out of the inner earth. And that's my feeling. And
That's fascinating. Well,
but thank you. Thank you for this program, and let's stay in touch.
yes, absolutely. And I'm going to have a little play out music here. It's the happy music. Alan Steinfield, fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. Please come back. It's NewRealitiesEvents.com. And then you can catch him on YouTube at New Realities as well. Once again, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for being in the chat room. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your time and attention. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and please share this video. If you heard something in this conversation tonight that clicks with you, or clicks with some of your friends, or you know someone that wants to hear that, share it, please, and help spread the word. This is a growing channel and a growing show, and I appreciate your time and attention as always. Have a great week going into the holidays, everyone. Please be safe. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll probably be doing some pop-up broadcasts between now and Thanksgiving. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.